When you walk down the baby aisle these days or scroll through social media, the technology marketed to new parents looks like it belongs on a literal spaceship.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly futuristic.
Right. You see these sleek, glowing wireless orbs that just promise to make feeding a baby utterly effortless. I mean, you just slip them into your clothing, tap an app on your phone, and go about your day as if nothing has changed.
Yeah, and it's presented as entirely frictionless. Like the marketing narrative really pushes this idea that biology has, finally been conquered by Silicon Valley engineering.
But then you step into the actual lived reality of establishing a milk supply, and suddenly that sleek marketing illusion just shatters.
Oh, completely shatters.
The truth is, we're looking at a landscape of medical technology that is incredibly confusing and, honestly, incredibly high stakes. Welcome to the deep dive. Whether you are a new parent, an employer trying to figure out how to support your workforce, or just a learner who is insanely curious about how everyday medical tech actually functions, well, we are so glad you are here.
We really are.
Today, our mission is decoding the chaotic world of breast pumps. And we're pulling from a massive stack of sources today. We've got Fruit Loop's technology reviews, some really raw and honest Reddit threads, medical maintenance guides from Mohamed, and even the latest TSA travel regulations.
Which is a crucial intersection for you to understand because this is where highly specific medical technology crashes headfirst into everyday life.
Yeah, totally.
The core tension we are exploring today is how the marketing hype of convenience often completely ignores the harsh biological realities of how the human body actually produces milk.
Which is fascinating.
Right. And by the end of this, you'll see exactly why the most expensive, futuristic gadget on the shelf isn't always the right tool for the job.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to make sense of any of it, we really have to start at the very beginning of the timeline.
Yeah.
Before you can even worry about connecting a smart pump to your wifey or, packing it for a flight, you have to actually establish a baseline milk supply.
Yes. That is step one.
And looking at the landscape, it feels like there are two completely different universes of pumps out there.
That is a critical distinction to make right out of the gate. The sources draw a very thick line between a standard personal pump and what is called a hospital-grade pump.
Okay, so what's the actual difference? Is it just branding?
Well, the FDA doesn't strictly regulate the term hospital grade, so marketing departments sometimes use it a bit loosely on consumer boxes. But in a clinical setting, a true hospital-grade pump is a heavy-duty, multi-user machine. It has a completely closed system.
Meaning the milk can never enter the actual motor, right? So multiple people can safely use the same machine in a hospital ward as long as they have their own tubing and attachments.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than just hygiene, though. It's about sheer mechanical endurance. These hospital machines are built to withstand 10,000 or more motor hours.
10,000, wow.
Yeah, they are absolute workhorses with massive motors. A standard personal electric pump, on the other hand, is strictly for one user and is engineered to last maybe 1,500 to 3,000 hours.
That's a huge gap.
It is. But the real divergence is in the clinical application. When a baby is in the NICU, or if a mother experiences delayed lactation or just a severe low supply, the care team is going to immediately turn to a hospital rental pump.
Hold on, this is where I get confused. Under the Affordable Care Act, health insurance is required to cover the cost of a personal breast pump. Like you can go online, click a button, and get a brand new, sleek personal pump mailed to your house for free.
Right.
So why on earth would someone go through the massive friction of renting a loud, heavy, clunky machine from a medical equipment provider?
It comes down to what the body mechanically requires during a clinical crisis versus what it needs for just daily maintenance.
Okay, that makes sense.
In those early days, especially if a newborn cannot nurse directly, the human body requires incredibly consistent, deeply powerful stimulation to trigger milk production from scratch. Standard personal pumps, even the very high-end ones, simply do not have the motor size or the specialized suction rhythm to provide that clinical level consistency.
So it's like using a massive industrial generator to jumpstart a dead power grid versus using a sleek smartphone battery to just keep things topped off.
That is a perfect way to look at it. The hospital pump is a medical intervention for initiating and rebuilding. If someone tries to use a smaller personal pump, or worse, A wearable pump. Too early in the process before their supply is firmly established, they can actually sabotage their body's milk production.
Wait, really? They can sabotage it?
Absolutely. The wearable just doesn't have the heavy-duty draw required to mimic a newborn establishing a supply.
That distinction makes so much sense. You need the industrial generator for the crisis.
Uh.
But once that baseline supply is established, parents naturally want their hands and, their lives back. They want to be able to hold their baby or type on a laptop or drive a car.
Exactly.
And that desire is what's driving the explosive popularity of wearable pumps.
What's fascinating here is how aggressively the technology has evolved to solve that exact problem of daily repeatability. If you look at the Forbes vetted list, they highlight some genuinely incredible engineering.
Oh, I saw that.
You have devices like the LV pump, which features smart app tracking to monitor milk volume in real time. It actually uses sensors to automatically switch from rapid stimulation mode to a slower expression mode the second it detects that milk is flowing.
And the hardware specs are just getting wild. I mean, the Forbes list mentioned the Eufy S1 Pro boasts something like 300 millimeters of mercury for suction strength.
Right.
And it even incorporates heat. But I need some context here. Is 300 millimeters of mercury a lot?
To put that in perspective, the baseline suction of a typical nursing baby ranges anywhere from about 50 to 150 millimeters of mercury.
Oh, wow. So 300 is double that.
Yeah, so a machine pulling at 300 is applying an immense amount of force. It's designed to empty the breast as quickly as possible, and it comes with a wireless charging case that holds 5 days of power.
That's intense.
Then you also have options like the Momcozy M5, which brings this entirely tube-free, hands-free technology down to a much more affordable price point for the average family.
The innovation is wild. And look, if a wearable allows you to get a pumping session in while you're commuting, a session you otherwise would have skipped because you couldn't be tethered to a wall outlet, then that gadget has immense tangible value.
Totally.
But when you cross-reference that Forbes tech list with the raw reality check from the Reddit breastfeeding communities, a very different, much more frustrating picture emerges.
The Reddit threads are incredibly sobering, honestly. The consensus among daily users is that wearables, even those premium ones pulling at 300 millimeters of mercury, often fail when used as a primary standalone pump.
Wait, why? If the suction is that strong and the person is using it every single day, what goes wrong?
It's an issue of geometry and motor style. Wearables are constrained by their size. I mean, they have to fit inside a bra. So while they might have high peak suction, they often lack the sustained rhythmic depth of a traditional wall plug pump.
Ah, I see.
Real users consistently report that their bodies just don't respond the same way. One user on Reddit detailed how her overall daily supply noticeably dipped when she switched exclusively to a wearable around the 6 to 8 month mark.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, she actually had to go back to her heavy-duty wall plug Medela to build her supply back up.
And then there are the hidden costs of convenience. The Forbes review focuses on the high initial price, but the Reddit users are the ones pointing out the ongoing maintenance tax. Like, one user highlighted that the Willow pump requires specific proprietary flex tubes that have to be replaced every 3 months.
Yes.
And cost $30 a pop. Plus, you have to buy their specific milk containers. Are we paying $400 for convenience at the cost of our actual milk supply?
It's a harsh trade-off. The overarching takeaway from the user data is that wearables are fantastic for on-the-go maintenance or for saving a missed session. But for many, they simply cannot replace the raw, sustained emptying power of a traditional standard pump.
Okay, but whether someone is using a heavy-duty wall pump or a futuristic wearable, I noticed a recurring theme in the sources that basically says all of this expensive motor technology is completely useless if the physical connection to the human body is wrong.
This brings us to what might be the most overlooked, deeply misunderstood aspect of the entire process, and that's flange sizing. This is where the mechanics of the pump directly interface with human biology, and it is a point of massive, painful failure for so many people.
The flange is the plastic funnel that actually goes over the nipple and creates the vacuum seal, right?
Yeah.
I always just assume that when you buy a pump, the plastic piece that comes in the box is the size you're supposed to use.
That is the single biggest misconception.
Yeah.
Most pumps standardly ship with flanges that are 24 millimeters or 28 millimeters wide. They just hand you the box and assume you'll make it work.
Right.
But if you look at the research from the Feeding Circle, the clinical average nipple size is actually 13 to 15 millimeters.
That is a massive discrepancy. It's like I don't know, trying to run a marathon in shoes that are 3 sizes too big, or trying to pull a cork out of a wine bottle using pliers that are completely stripped and 3 sizes too wide. You're just gripping empty air, you're damaging the rim of the bottle, and the cork isn't going anywhere.
Exactly.
But why do companies do this? If the clinical average size is 15 millimeters, why do all these multi-million-dollar pump manufacturers default to shipping 24-millimeter flanges? Is it just lazy manufacturing?
It's a frustrating combination of historical momentum and manufacturing economics. It is significantly cheaper to mass produce a one-size-fits-all product, even if that size fits almost no one correctly.
Wow.
But to understand why this mismatch is so devastating, we have to look at the biological mechanics. The body's let-down reflex, which is the hormonal signal of oxytocin that actually releases the milk from the milk ducts, is heavily dependent on the physical stretching of the nipple.
So they needs to feel that specific tight tension?
Precisely. When a baby nurses, they draw the nipple in and stretch it. A properly sized flange mimics this exact sensation by allowing the nipple to gently glide and stretch against the sides of the plastic tunnel.
Okay.
But if someone is using a 24-millimeter flange on a 15-millimeter nipple, the tissue is just swimming in empty plastic space. It isn't stretching against anything. Therefore, the brain never gets the signal to release the oxytocin.
Which triggers a cascade of terrible consequences. I mean, if the milk isn't removed effectively, it causes painful engorgement. The extra vacuum space allows the pump to pull the sensitive areola tissue into the plastic tunnel, causing severe swelling, chafing, and tissue damage.
Yes, it's incredibly painful.
And worst of all, because the milk isn't emptying, the body gets a biological signal that the baby must not need as much food, so it automatically drops production.
And this is where it gets tragic. Parents are often told by well-meaning friends to just push through the pain, or they assume their body is just naturally failing to produce enough milk, when in reality, it's just an engineering mismatch. Their pump is literally the wrong size.
So how do you fix it once you realize your shoes are too big or your pliers are too wide? The sources mention that just swapping to the right size overnight can actually cause a temporary drop in supply, which sounds terrifying if you're already struggling.
It sounds counterintuitive, but it makes perfect biological sense. Over time, the body has become accustomed to the incorrect, painful sensations of the large flange. If you suddenly switch to the correct, smaller size, the sensation is entirely different.
I see.
The brain essentially has to relearn how to trigger the letdown reflex with this new stimulus. Plus, if the old large flange was causing chronic swelling, the new correctly sized flange might actually pinch and not fit correctly until that swelling has time to go down.
So you really have to ease the body into it. The feeding circle suggests 2 practical methods. The first is the retrain method, where you literally wear the old wrong-size flange on one breast and the new correct-size flange on the other. You alternate them each pumping session to slowly train the brain to accept the new sensation.
Or there is the switch-out method, where you start a session using the new correct size for about 15 minutes to get the body used to the feeling, and then you switch back to the old larger flange just to ensure the breast is fully emptied.
So it takes time.
It takes patience, sometimes up to 2 weeks of this transitioning. But correcting that physical connection is the single most important variable in pumping successfully.
Okay, so let's say you've navigated all of this. You've established your supply with a hospital pump, you've bought your wearable for the road, and you've painstakingly measured yourself to get the perfect 13-millimeter flange. You're set for the year.
Right. Unfortunately, no. And this is a major blind spot for most people.
Because pumps are machines, and machines degrade. Which brings us to the hidden dangers of pump expiration and hygiene.
Unlike a carton of milk, a breast pump motor doesn't have a stamped expiration date on the bottom. But as we discussed earlier, a personal electric pump only has a functional lifespan of about 1,500 to 3,000 motor hours.
Right, and if we do the math on that, let's say someone is exclusively pumping, which means they're pumping maybe 8 times a day for 20 minutes a session. That's roughly 160 hours a month. A 1,500-hour motor might start subtly dying on them in less than 10 months.
And it's not just the motor burning out. The MOMAD maintenance guide deeply emphasizes the critical necessity of replacing what are called the wear parts.
Which are what, exactly?
These are the small, soft silicone pieces inside the pump, specifically the duckbill valves and the backflow protectors.
The MOMAD source uses a brilliant analogy for this. They say replacing these small silicone parts every 4 to 8 weeks is exactly like changing the oil in your car. If you don't change the oil, the engine eventually seizes and fails. So what does this all mean?
It's exactly like that.
Right.
Think about how a duckbill valve works. It's a tiny silicone flap that snaps shut to create the vacuum seal that pulls the milk. Every time you sterilize those parts in boiling water or a steam bag, the extreme heat slowly degrades the silicone.
It just wears out.
It loses its elasticity. Micro tears form. Eventually, the lips of the valve stop snapping shut all the way.
So the vacuum seal is broken. The motor is just pulling air instead of pulling a vacuum on the breast.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the emotional toll of this mechanical failure is devastating. When a valve wears out and the vacuum drops, less milk is removed. The mother sees her output dropping day by day, and almost universally she blames herself. She thinks her body is failing, or her diet is wrong, or she isn't drinking enough water. But in reality, it's just a degraded piece of silicone that costs $5 to replace.
That is heartbreaking. To carry that guilt thinking your body is failing your baby when it's just a worn-out flap of plastic?
And it's not just mechanical failure. The hygiene risks of using older parts are terrifying.
Yes. The backflow protectors act as a physical silicone barrier to keep milk vapor out of the pump's motor and tubing. If those wear out and lose their seal, microscopic milk vapor gets into the plastic air tubes.
And moisture trapped in dark tubing leads to invisible mold. You can't even see it, but it's blowing back and forth with every pump of the motor.
Exactly. And as the hard plastic parts age and are repeatedly scrubbed and sterilized, they develop microscopic scratches and pits. You cannot clean inside these microfissures. They become permanent breeding grounds for bacteria, including Staphylococcus.
Oh my gosh, Steph. Yes. When fresh, warm milk flows over these scratched parts, it becomes contaminated, which is incredibly dangerous for an infant's developing immune system, especially if they are a preemie.
The takeaway here is that you have to treat these plastic parts as consumable medical supplies, not permanent kitchen appliances.
Precisely. They have a lifespan, and you have to respect it.
So you've mastered the mechanics, the sizing, the silicone oil changes of your pump, but inevitably, you have to take this entire delicate, highly calibrated ecosystem out into the real world. You have to travel. And looking at the sources, the airport security checkpoint seems to be where the stress of this entire ecosystem peaks.
It absolutely is. You are dealing with expensive medical equipment, highly perishable liquid gold, and federal agents. Our source from Mom Cozy breaks down the TSA regulations, and the fundamental rule you need to know is that breast milk is federally classified as a medically necessary liquid.
Meaning it is entirely exempt from the standard 3.4-ounce liquid limit for carry-on bags.
Furthermore, thanks to the Babes Enhancement Act, which was signed into law in 2025, federal protections for traveling parents have been significantly strengthened. The law mandates clearer rules, mandatory retraining for TSA agents regarding breast milk, and actual oversight to ensure compliance.
There are some crucial facts in here that completely blow people's minds. First, you are legally allowed to fly with breast milk, ice packs, and your pump, even if your baby is not with you, which makes total sense. I mean, if you're on a 3-day business trip, biology doesn't stop. You still have to pump.
Right. And regarding the milk itself, the CDC guidance clarifies exactly how to handle it in transit. Fresh milk can stay in an insulated cooler with frozen ice packs for up to 24 hours.
Okay, good to know.
A very specific, helpful detail for travelers is that if your milk starts to thaw in the cooler but still has ice crystals in it, like if it's slushy, it is perfectly safe to throw it right back in the freezer when you get to your hotel.
But if it is fully thawed, with no ice crystals left, the clock is ticking. You have to use it within 24 hours. Now, this all sounds great on paper. The laws are on the books, the Babes Act is passed, but we all know airport security can be a wild card. What actually happens when a stressed-out parent runs into a TSA agent who just doesn't know the law?
That is the reality on the ground. Despite the 2025 law, human variability at the checkpoint is still a massive hurdle. The Mom Cozy Guide advises practical defensive airport strategies. First, declare the milk immediately. Don't wait for them to flag it in the X-ray machine.
Right, get ahead of it.
Tell the agent before your bags even go on the belt that you have medically necessary liquids.
And pack defensively. Keep it easily accessible at the top of your bag so they don't have to unpack all your clothes to find it.
Exactly. Now, you can request a hand inspection if you don't want the milk X-rayed, though it's worth noting the FDA states X-rays do not harm the milk. A hand check will just take significantly longer.
Makes sense.
Most importantly, have screenshots of the specific airline's baggage policies saved on your phone.
Because most airlines classify a breast pump as a medical device, meaning it does not count toward your one carry-on or personal item limit. If a gate agent tries to charge you for an extra bag, a screenshot resolves that dispute infinitely faster than an argument. Preparation is everything.
It is your best defense against the unpredictability of travel.
Wow. We have covered incredible ground today. We started by defining the sheer industrial power required to establish a milk supply with a hospital-grade rental, and why skipping straight to a sleek wearable can sabotage the whole process.
We really went through it all.
We did. We examined the massive trade-offs of the wearable revolution, balancing Forbes tech reviews against the real-world limits reported by daily users on Reddit. We tackled the shock of discovering that standard 24mm flanges are biologically wrong for almost everyone, and how that mismatch destroys supply.
That's such a huge issue.
We looked at the hidden ticking clock on pump motors, the tragedy of worn-out silicone valves, and finally, we armed you with the federal laws and tactical strategies you need to successfully negotiate with the TSA.
This raises an important question. When you step back and look at all of this, given how incredibly precise flange sizing needs to be to trigger a hormonal letdown, and how critical exact suction and hygiene are for infant health case, what if our healthcare system treated breast pumps less like off-the-shelf consumer electronics and more like custom prosthetics or prescription glasses?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Imagine a world where a personalized 3D printed flange fitting conducted by a medical professional was mandatory and fully covered by insurance. Rather than just being mailed a one-size-fits-all cardboard box and being wished good luck, the technology would be seamlessly customized to the exact biology of the user.
That is a brilliant vision of what maternal health care could and frankly should look like. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. To you, the learner, whether you're navigating this journey yourself, supporting a partner, or just love understanding how things work, we hope this cleared the muddy waters of medical technology. Keep learning, keep questioning the world around you, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.